Hey there, Adrienne Elise here. Welcome to the Gaia Daily for April 29th, 30th, 2020. How are you doing? Well, gosh, what's happening right now is that we're feeling Mercury now in Taurus. Of course, the sun is still in Taurus, and we've got Uranus in Taurus, speaking to how do we stabilize into this new paradigm? How do we own and adjust and deserve with the issues of Taurus around our self-worth? And so with the sun and Mercury there, the sun is like, who are we and our identity? And then Mercury is like, how do we make sense of what's going on? These things are both very elusive and in this time that we're in, and yet Taurus is about stability and putting those roots down and finding that stable place in the material physical world, having what we need, and but also our value system and what we value, what our world values collectively, what we personally value, our resources in this world, financial systems, and also our personal resources. And it's bringing up this whole energy of where we're coming up against the structures of our world that don't really fit who we are spiritually. You know, this has been an old story. This is the story that started, of course, is very, very old, ancient, right? But it really came to the surface around 2011 when we started moving into the 2012 energies, and we had that Pluto-Uranus square. And that was about like, okay, how do we change our world, the structures, the physical structures of our world, to be able to support this new paradigm? And so we had that big revolutionary epic Pluto-Uranus square, and then nothing happened, right? Like in our outside world. Now it's happening, right? Now we're seeing the changes, and it's incredibly disconcerting for the collective, right? And so we talked about this yesterday about how it was one thing to be quarantined. It's another thing to think about now going outside into the world and all the fears that come up and who am I and where am I going and what am I doing? Because everything's different and we don't know what's up from down. This really confused feeling where we're not being told the truth, and then when we are being told a little bit of truth, it gets taken off of YouTube, right? So it's just like this very uncomfortable feeling coming up in the collective. And to know that you've already been in that uncomfortable feeling for a very long time. So that's not your stuff, right? You're actually way more comfortable in the current energies than you have been in a long time if you can allow yourself to be there and enjoy these energies. There are waves of psychic attack, though. It's kind of like I can just feel this invisible battle going on, you know, of this control energy versus our freedom and autonomy. And so just know that we're in this strange place of like, and it kind of looks to me like for these souls going back and forth into the old energies and into the new energies. And just know that that's happening. And the more you can stabilize, right? So the Taurus energy is asking us to stabilize in the new frequencies, right? So instead of the earth, I mean, the physical manifestation of earth being our stability, we're being asked to like find stability in energetic fields, right? And plasma in the living goddess that is the earth. And so, that's where what's going on. And that's really this energy of Taurus. I mean, think about it. Taurus, the word Taurus speaks to a tube torus, which is the feminine. It's the shape, which is like a donut shape. And the donut shape represents, or it is the shape of a type of electricity, a way that vortex technology, plasma technology works, like free energy devices would work on this model of perpetual motion, right? And so this is like a feminine kind of electricity available to us right in the air, in our own bodies. And it's represented, or the image that can show us this energy is a Taurus. So Taurus is about this, like, ultimately there's mysteries in Taurus, the sign of Taurus, of evolving into this new energy into our plasma field and out of our attachment to the physical, right? And that's what this Uranus and Taurus is bringing, because Uranus is the ruler of Aquarius, and it's like the Aquarian age and higher frequency vibrations and new technology, old ancient technology, future technology, ancient wisdom. It's represents in our birth chart like the part of ourselves that knows way more than we do. Whether or not like its placement means like what's our relationship to that, and how can we access it, and is it accessible to us, and what's in the way. So here we have Mercury in Taurus and moving right into this conjunction with Uranus. That happens exact on Friday. And so this is like Mercury just had this, Mercury's trying to figure out, Mercury, the messenger, is trying to figure out as our everyday mind, but also the messenger from like, it's almost like Mercury and Uranus have a connection, because Mercury's like, okay, this is what it means in our everyday conceptual little brain. And then going back and forth to the gods, or to the bigger, wider energies, mythology, but like, and then translating that to humanity, right? Now, Mercury's a trickster too, right? He's got all this great information, but there's a little bit, you gotta, he'll only tell you what you can receive, and he's might talk in riddles. And so it's like, how much can we receive of this connection to the higher, bigger picture of what's going on? And so Mercury's got his work cut out for him right now. Mercury's the ruler of Gemini, and we've got Venus and Gemini going to be there for 4 months for this Venus retrograde coming into the square with Neptune here. We're starting to feel that. And then we got the North Node moving into Gemini. So it's like the trickster's on the table, and we need to like get the truth, and enough manipulation, right? Like humanity has been told a whole bunch of truth and like then one little part of lies. Like this is kind of like, my experience in reading the Bible. It's like, oh, there's all this beautiful spiritual truth. And then there's a little paragraph at the bottom that's like, disclaimer, twists the meaning of all of that. And that's kind of the energy of Mercury, and Mercury kind of is on the table right now. Like, and it's like, okay, we need some actual truth. We need like to come out of the manipulation and the lies. This is in our personal relationships, right? And in our collective. And this Venus retrograde in Gemini and the North Node in Gemini says that this is what's holding humanity back right now. We're being manipulated, and it's getting so obvious, like these very qualified from their heart doctors, California, standing up saying, hey, our health depends on connection, right? Like, and this coronavirus isn't as dangerous as they're saying. It's 0.1% mortality rate. And we've got the social distancing is not healthy, right? And then those videos being taken down. And these are like, part of the establishment, people with the MD behind their name, and a lot of people standing up, and that censorship, right, is like right on the table. So there's something going on around this Mercury coming into Uranus, right? And this lower mind and our higher mind, which is interesting because that's what we're feeling here for the next few days. And then, of course, Mercury comes to next week. Mercury and the Sun come together. But we've got this, we're moving into this big month-long Venus square Neptune. Now, Venus is the lower octave of love, our relationship love, and Neptune represents spiritual love. So that's really interesting. And then Mercury's like the lower mind, our conceptual reality. And then Uranus is the higher mind that we can't quite access a lot of times. So Mercury and Uranus coming together is wanting to bring forward some truth, right? And let's get this distortion out of here. But I think it has to become really, really obvious before, we got to see. Right. So this is maybe that metaphor of what happens in those relationships where you're like kind of cruising along. Something's not quite right. You can't quite figure out, like you're constantly thinking about how you should word things and like what you should do and should you leave? Should you stay? Should you, and that that energy in relationships is, so when you're confused, it's a symptom that you're being manipulated, right? And that's exactly where humanity is right now. Like, wait, are we really being lied to on this massive level? Like, whoa. And then it's hard to even look at that, right? And the part of us that's comfortable with Father God taking care of things and trusting and just like, well, somebody else will take care of it. That part of us is being incredibly challenged. It kind of feels like this nodal shift, right? Like the nodal shift out of like the North Node in Cancer, South Node in Capricorn, where it's about where we've given our power away in personal relationships and in our family relationships. It's like the human condition that we need to give our power away in order to get our needs met, to just survive, right? So we need this Father God. And it's like, what if we're the Father God, right? Like we're the particle of God. We hold the power. We are our own autonomous authority as soon as we're ready to step into that. And that's why there's this drama happening at the end of Capricorn. And we're feeling that today, actually, right now. The moon is finishing up in Cancer. And so that means it's squaring with Pluto, and then it's going to opposing Pluto. The moon in Cancer opposing Pluto, opposing Jupiter. And so it's like, it's on the table right now, just right now. And it's interesting that we're coming up in this Mercury Uranus, because it's like, ooh, connecting the dots. Because Gemini is trying to find clarity out of the manipulation and trying to see the other side of the story and trying to be subjective, and not reactive. And Gemini is cunning, right? Gemini is like that mercurial mind. It's like, I want to figure it out. And so it's got both sides of like the manipulation and the mastermind, right? We need to tap into that mastermind and get the clues of the little bits of truth, be willing to face. So right now, we're at this interesting place that I think the Gemini energy has to do with, where the truth is out there. There's full-on evidence of, truths at a massive level, but we don't want to look at them, and we're like, it's okay to just go along with the herd and be fed in the news feed, right? And so how do we get out of this, right? I think that's part of what this Gemini energy is, but we are starting to feel right now this Venus square Neptune that we're going to feel for a whole month to the 27th of May. We feel this Venus because Venus is turning retrograde and then we'll come back into this square. So it's exact this first week of May, the 4th to the 6th. And then again, it's exact the 20th to the 22nd. So that just means it's like in this square for a whole month. And then if you saw my Venus retrograde video, they come back together for their third square at the end of July. So there's an energy today in these next couple of days. It's like we're taking off on a journey. And I know it's like, wait a minute, we don't even know who we are and where we're going and what's going on in the world because everything got turned upside down, right? Like, how do we go live our life? How do we get back to normal? There's no normal and there's no new normal. It's like, just this really disoriented feeling. That's Venus square Neptune, completely disoriented. And the disorientation is on a very personal level of like, what do I want? Why do I live? Who am I? What do I, everything I thought that I was working for in this life doesn't fit, like really. Like, and now it's like this whole situation in the world is like breaking a spell of like where we've just been keep on going along, right? Keep on in that job that doesn't fit you. Keep on just living your life. Just get through the next day, right? And all that spell has been broken, right? And now we're being forced to reevaluate everything, who we are and what we're doing. And that's exactly this astrology. But today is like the last day we're feeling Mars and Venus into this sweet trine they've been in, trying to harmonize this opposites within, the opposites and the fight against the other in our world. And it's very powerful that these come back together in a trine. So they make a square in June, at the very beginning of June, right? So about a month from now, they make a square because Mars will be in Mars will be in Pisces. Then when Mars is in its retrograde in Aries, Venus in Leo will trine up. So that happens at the end of September. So I feel like we're starting a journey now, and it's a journey into the unknown. It's a journey into disorientation. It's a journey into revaluation. It's a journey back to through our relationship pattern. So fun. And it's like a few months of completely re-navigating our life. We've got a Mercury retrograde in there in Cancer. And so this moment, and then to the end of September, it's like a huge rearranging of our whole reality, and kind of culminating at the end of July, but then another chapter at the end of September. So, and it goes ongoing, right? Like 2022, the end of the year till the new, right? Because Mars retrograde, and Mars comes out of its retrograde shadow on January 1st, 2021. Like the stars couldn't be more clear, so 2020 is like, we are a ship lost at sea, trying to navigate the unknown waters, and the ship is breaking and sinking, and we have no idea where we're at, and there's a storm coming. And that's just kind of where we are. But that's where you guys come in, right? Because you've already experienced this complete confusion in your life. You've already had your world turned upside down. You've already had to go through your ego death and be like, who in the heck am I and what am I doing? And so now you finally get to orient, because you're surfing the plasma, right? You're like, you guys, you don't need a ship, right? Like, get on board with the surfing of the plasma. And maybe that's a good energy for us of like, but I think as in this month of May, we're going to have huge waves of collective confusion, disorientation. It's almost like facing the reality of what this world situation has done to our personal lives. And so then that knowing that you as a sensitive soul is going to feel these, it's one thing just to be like, oh, I got to be in quarantine, right? But then it's another thing to be like, how do you step outside your door and go face the music? And how do you continue to live your life when you know that it's based on the sinking ship? And that's what humanity is going through, right? So by you taking that leap into the surfing of the plasma, into the unknown, into like, it's something way better than the whole distortion, lies, manipulation, right? And so be in that energy and give yourself permission. So that's a big part of this next week, because Mercury coming up with Uranus, and we're going to feel that through Saturday. And then on Saturday, we start feeling Mercury in the sun, right? So we've got a full week of Mercury, Uranus, Mercury, Sun. And remember that Mercury and the sun came together for the last time during the Saturn-Pluto conjunction in January. Now, that was an intense time, but we didn't feel the fallout of it. We didn't know what it really meant, right? Until March. And so Mercury and the sun coming back together in Taurus is speaking to this, to Taurus. It's speaking to this, because they just, both of them went over Uranus, right? And now they're coming back together in a council. And the sun is like, who are we in the plasma, And Mercury's like, how do we sort out our brain? How do we, like, it's like our, so a lot of energy around coming out of the mind control and manipulative psychological stuff that's been going on, and freeing our mind, we need to hook back up to our greater grid, which is not even a grid really. It's like, when we connect, when we can get out of the lower psychology, manipulative matrix, then we can connect with our higher self. And we got to go there, right? And we can feel the lower matrix is dismantling. But then it's kind of that whole Stockholm syndrome where it's like, okay, the gates have been open, you guys. Like, you can leave now. You don't have to be a part of the herd. And it's like, but this is all I've known for lifetimes. And this is what this is what I'm used to. And it's like, yeah, I'm a prisoner in my own mind, but, at least it's comfortable and familiar, right? And it's like, yeah, no, we gotta this is about storming the gates and kind of like turning the herd into a new direction, and you're here to lead the way. And how you do that, don't get overwhelmed with like, it's really hard right now because there's a lot of messages and a lot of energy coming up in teachers and leaders in our world being like, you got to do something, you got to fight, right? And there are people, humanity needs to do that. Humanity needs to stand up and say no. But your fight is on this psychological level and this energetic level, and you're allowing yourself to step into the new paradigm and to, because that energy of you connected to your higher self and floating on the plasma and knowing that we're moving into a new paradigm that's better and more beautiful, that is the biggest protest you can do right now, right? One by one. And then if you're in that energy, if you give yourself permission, which is that's what this next week is about. It's like, do you have self-worth to be who you are in your bigger spiritual self? Do you feel worthy of freedom? And do you feel worthy of being this leader in this time, right? Because if you host these energies and you just walk down the street and you go out into the world, this is the orientation we need right now. We need people that can embody the bigger, wider truth and just be a living, breathing example of that. And there you go. There's the answer to how you move in the new world and how you navigate. And so, of course, if you're called to protest and stand up and go to a march and contact your senators, great. That's so awesome. But the biggest protest you can do right now is to get out of the lower matrix, because the reason why you've been so psychologically targeted over lifetimes is because you are a projector soul, right? That is like work you can co-create. And so it's like, that's what we need to do. We need to start creating and being in and allowing for ourselves the electromagnetic field of this new earth and living this in our cellular level, and that's enough of a job, right? That's enough of like a protest. That's enough of what you need to do. It's not easy. And it takes a whole like full-time job of self-care right now. But to kind of be resolute in that, right? In this new identity of who you are. And that's how you're going to navigate this storm. And that's how you're going to orient in this new world. And that's what your focus is as you step over that threshold back out into life, a lot of these souls have felt kind of like quarantine's been good for them on some level, because it's like, this like just, kind of permission to isolate. And that's good. There's a good energy to that. We talk about how you have to say no to the lower vibrational karmic relationships in order to make room for something else. And that has a period of time of the loneliness and the isolation. But we've got a Scorpio full moon coming up next week, in a week on Wednesday. And Scorpio wants connection. And it's speaking to this, the power of human connection, and that it is not healthy for us to isolate, right? Like, and that's where we need to stand up and like these soul, like, it's kind of cool because there's so much intimacy issues, people, social media giving us a false sense of intimacy, and then deep loneliness, actually, right? And this whole thing is like, throw that aside and go connect with someone, go get a hug, like go be open to connection. And that's like the Scorpio full moon, I think, is going to blow this whole social distancing out of the water. And it'll be interesting to see, and where humans stand up for humanity and stand up for the human connection and the power of love as a healing mechanism and touch. And this is who we are. This is the definition of humanity. This virus is a bioweapon, but it's also direct attack on humanity, on our humanness, and it's like the Scorpio full moon is kind of like, not working for us, right? So the the protests I would like to see is like big communal gatherings, right? How about a hug fest, right? Love fest, let's do it. So hang in there and know that these waves of collective energy are coming. It's not yours. You've already been there. It's your job to step into surfing on the plasma and let everybody be on their sinking ship. And just hang in there, and I'll be back with another update tomorrow. Until then, I'm Adrienne Elise. Namaste.